think we're going to get started. Steph, can you hear
me? Let's do it. Yeah.
Wow, what a new and different way to have an event, right?
Yes.
Well, my name is Kelly Hansen. I'm a reporter for Twin Cities Live. This is Steph Page. She is the founder and executive director of Stories Foundation. And Steph, I'm so glad you asked me to join you tonight because I've been learning so much about all of this. I mean, I feel like maybe I've lived in a bubble for way too long. And I know that I'm probably the norm when it comes to trafficking and sexual exploitation. So I'm just so thrilled to be here with you tonight and to learn from you and learn from our presenters. So thank you for having me.
I'm so grateful that you're here with us. This is so fun. I'm excited.
And welcome to our homes, right?
Yeah.
Usually when I MC an event, I'm in front of a lot of people. I'm in front of a wall right now. So it's okay. Well, we wanted to welcome everyone who is watching right now. Thank you so much for joining us. Tonight, we are going to raise awareness. We are going to talk about vulnerabilities in our communities. And tonight's theme, it is ending human trafficking and sexual exploitation. We're going to talk about vulnerabilities because they're in our communities right now. And I don't think people realize that. Do you, Steph?
Our eyes aren't open to the vulnerabilities that are around us. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to open your eyes to that this evening. We're going to hear from many different speakers who have had experience, who have worked with those that have been exploited. And I think tonight we're going to inspire people to take a stand, make a change, and influence and impact like we've never seen before. And I think real quickly, Steph, if you could explain what Stories Foundation is, I think in a nutshell, that would be really helpful.
Yeah. So Stories Foundation, for those of you who don't know, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're located here in the Twin Cities. And our goal is to use social impact business to spread awareness about human trafficking, and then to empower people through what they purchase to make a difference. So we run a food truck. You might know us from the Freedom Truck. We do storyteller catering. We have a coffee club, and all that profit goes back to fighting against human trafficking. And we believe in nonprofit collaboration. We believe we're better together. And we really just want to help people understand human trafficking and then see what their role is in fighting against it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. We want to thank Elderberry Queen for sponsoring the event and keeping it personal for hosting. So Steph, I know we heard a little bit about what Stories Foundation is, but give us an overview of what we're going to see and hear tonight.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the content that we have tonight. I'm excited about the speakers that have said they'd join us tonight just to share about the work that they're doing and what they see. We're really going to see about what the vulnerabilities are around us. We're going to have our eyes opened and hopefully our heart broken a little bit, but not so that we can sit in that, but so that we can be activated to create change. So my hope is that after tonight, you don't feel more depressed, but that you feel inspired and encouraged and a little challenged to see how your story fits in among everyone else's stories, because all of our stories are connected and all of our stories are important and are valuable. So it's going to be a great night.
It's going to be a great night. Okay, so I know tonight we are going to talk a lot about a new thing that you guys want to do over at Stories Foundation, which is build a cafe. I know we're going to get to that later this evening, but how can people join us and how can people support Stories Foundation tonight?
Yeah, so we are live on Zoom, but we're also live on Facebook. So I would love to invite you, if you want to go ahead and hop on over to the Stories Foundation Facebook page, like Stories Foundation, and then like and share the live video. And you can start a watch party right there from Facebook with your friends and with your community. We want to share this message as far and wide as we can. We want it to go exponentially out to as many people as we can reach. And so that's one way you can join us. And then we're fundraising. We're fundraising tonight. We know we're in the COVID-19 crazy of 2020, and we know that life is uncertain, but we are moving towards a hopeful future, and we want to invite you all with us. And so we're fundraising, and we're going to do it a fun way. We have a big goal. We're launching a campaign tonight where we want to raise $200,000 before July 1st, and we're kicking it off. But tonight, when you give, we have some really fun incentives. So we're giving away some t-shirts. Anyone who gives between $25 and $49 tonight will get a Stories t-shirt. $50 to $99 if you give, you'll get a really fun Live, Share, Change mug and locally roasted fair trade coffee. And then over $100, I'll reveal that a little bit later. We're revealing something super fun and new. So yeah, we're fundraising and we're bringing awareness, and we would just love it if you would go ahead and like and share this on your social. You can go ahead and open up, if you're on your computer, another browser and find Stories Foundation and go start a watch party with your friends.
It's fun. I've got Zoom in front of me. I have my cell phone here. I'm watching a watch party with you, Steph. I know. The world we live in today. So like Steph mentioned, if you have the opportunity to give and you feel it in your heart, please do so tonight. And Steph will explain as we go on how you can go about doing that. Should we kick this thing off with a bang and have our first speaker tonight, our first panelist? What do you think, Steph?
Let's do it. We're ready.
Do it. Okay, our first panelist is Senator John Hoffman. Now, Senator John Hoffman, he's a current Minnesota State Senator and is known for speaking for those who don't have a voice, which is so important. And he has a heart for helping those with disabilities. I want to welcome Senator Hoffman to our Zoom call, our fundraising event. Are you there, Senator Hoffman? I feel like we should have some music.
Well, you can sing. That's great.
I know.
I'll say that if you want to go to storiesfoundation.org/storyline event, that's where you can be finding all of the information for tonight as well.
Okay, well, while we wait for Senator Hoffman, I know we're going to hear from quite a few people this evening. And maybe, Steph, you can give us a little preview. We've got people who have been through the worst when it comes to what we're talking about this evening. Oh, there he is. Hi, Senator Hoffman.
Wonderful.
How are you? I don't know what happened, Allison. I was looking at just two people, and then this Zoom thing went poof and then restarted again. And so here I am. I'm here. So
I'm digging your background, Senator Hoffman.
Don't you love that?
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We were just introducing you, and we were saying that you give a voice to those who don't have a voice, which is so important because that's what we're all here to do tonight, right? So I want to talk to you, though, about the vulnerabilities in our communities that maybe we're not aware of. What can you tell us about that?
There's a bunch. First of all, thank you to you and for hosting the Stories Foundation and putting together this event. I mean, this is a first time for me doing an actual fundraiser and an event through the Zoom process, and I hope it does well. And you know, and everything you've done up until now, and the things that we've done and we continue to do on behalf of those folks that have fallen prey to these horrendous acts and prevent future trauma perpetuated by these crimes is something that, you know, that you're doing, and it's real right here in Minnesota and across our nation. And you know, I'd like to go over, I can go over some of the past bills that we've worked on and the ones that we're currently working on that's trying to address this issue. And then I'd like to share maybe a couple of power stories that encourage here that I have seen firsthand dealing with this.
I would love to hear that. You know, I guess my first question is it a big deal here in Minnesota? Obviously it is. You're here, you're speaking out about it. There are bills surrounding it. So how big of an importance is it for us to be focusing on this right here in Minnesota?
It's absolutely huge. Prior to my election in 2012, I was a member, and I still am part of the Midway Chamber of Commerce. I was on their board for 8 years, and and through that work that John Choi was doing and some other businesses were doing was to highlight the fact that Minnesota, through the Duluth Harbor, through the airport, through the multiple freeway systems that are going through our state, it is a big deal and it's happening. And then when it touched me personally after my election, and I'll share with you a positive story of somebody who was actually trafficked, somebody locally from Coon Rapids who was trafficked and actually was able to break free from that trafficking and is now working hard, doing work right here in Minnesota and has got her life. And so I knew back then, and one of the first things that we really tried to establish was, remember in the 2013-2014 session, there was the Safe Harbor Act that was established in 2011. And in 2013-14, we knew that the issue needed to be brought even more forward. And there were 3 provisions that came through, giving the Department of Health the ability to establish a director of child sex trafficking and prevention. And that specifically, that duty of the director was to look at providing a regional navigator and to set grants in the various regions of the state. It is a statewide, and there's a PDF maybe I'll be able to share with you that shows just the impact that it has statewide. And what they wanted to do was to set up a comprehensive evaluation of a statewide program, and that was for safe harbor and sexually exploited youth. And then there was 2 other provisions. One was modifying certain provisions that relating to the delinquency side of it, and repealing certain provisions that were related specifically to first-time juvenile prostitution offenders. And finally, the third thing was to really appropriate the money for the Department of Health for grants to set up those regional navigators, and specifically in support of services for sexually exploited youth. So that was an issue right away when I was first elected in 2012 that we tackled. And every year it seems there seems to be more of that coming forward.
You know, my next question to you was, what are we doing well in Minnesota? It sounds like we are in tune that this is a problem in our state. We're not putting blinders onto it. We know it's an issue, and it sounds like you and a team of legislators are trying to do something about it.
And that's a great question, because that is, it's bipartisan. This is not a political conversation at all. I mean, for example, just a couple of years ago, Senator Jim Abler from Anoka, he chief authored a Senate File 3367, and that was in 2018. And I was honored to be able to vote for this bill and actually see it sign into law. And specifically, it was saying the hotels and motels that are traffic zones, they are traffic zones. So it was having their staff aware and trained to recognize the activities and then to be able to take proper action to save trafficked individuals. That became a valuable piece of law that was signed in 2018.
You know, you were talking earlier in our conversation about you being touched personally by this, and the outcome was favorable. A woman got out of this sexual exploitation and human trafficking. When you hear those stories, how do you feel when you hear those? It just has to make you feel like what you're doing is so important.
It became so evident that there was also a disparity there. Like, her sister is still being exploited, and her sister is a vulnerable adult, somebody who lives with a disability. And the individual that ended up interning for me actually testified on the Safe Harbor Act in 2013, 2014. And that became law, right? But her story was one, as a youth, right from our own community of Coon Rapids. And Breaking Free, the organization, was able to help her, and her story was highlighted in a book about that. And again, I said her sister is still being exploited, and it's just hard to break that wall. And I think if there's one thing we really need to really focus on is breaking down that wall. And I think there is a bill that is in the hops right now that I wish folks would get a little bit more antagonistic about. And that's Senator Dan Hall. I'm a co-author of his bill that when you look at it, it eliminates the statute of limitations, right? So even after somebody who might have been trafficked maybe years later is realizing that there's a sexual offense that occurred, right now Minnesota has a statute of limitations on sex offenses. And so there are many reasons why an allegation may not come to light with the current time frame, right? Whether it's a person who's under threat of harm or trauma, or they're living in the fact that this is a shame-based piece, or for any other reason, there's no crime, no criminal of this nature should escape the justice side of it, right? So that we should eliminate that. This bill, I hope we can get a hearing, within this year. It is, if folks want to write this down, it's Senate File 731. And it's just waiting to get a hearing in judiciary. And so I think it's time we take out that time frame out of the necessity of our state, because this is something that will always be necessary. And so that would help break through that wall. But it's getting to the individuals, and that's why when you look at the safe harbor, what the safe harbor tried to do was to really look at educating and providing awareness to people, right? To do that, to do some support, ongoing evaluation, which then led to back in 2017, there's the Sex Trafficking Victims Strategic Plan, and that was, I believe, Senator Ralph. I was a co-author on that bill as well, and that gave money to the Commissioner of Health, who oversees that Safe Harbor Act piece, and to create and report to the legislature about what the goals of the plan were, and that is actually starting to be implemented in the state, right? So we're looking at the centering victims, survivors, and all persons with lived experiences, right? Those people need to be cared for, and they need to be empowered. We need to develop that public safety and public health and human services responses. And the key here is then prioritizing the prevention side of it. And if we can prevent this from ever happening, I mean, wouldn't that be an ultimate goal? And that's an absolute goal. And that's why your storytelling, that's why your storyline, that's why what you're doing is really important. And then the action part is to increase the training and accountability throughout all disciplines. It's not just cycled in one area, right? Because we also need to be able to take that accountability and training and to be able to do that in a culturally responsive and equitable approach. That was also part of that provision in 2017, right? Three other things, and then I'll stop talking on that, is expanding the support services, right? Which was we needed to do. But I think the number one key on this one is we need to be able to remove the stigma, right? This is not an individual's fault, and it's imperative that we treat them as people that are growing strong, and not as that we have to remove that stigma side of it. So, and then of course there needs to be ongoing evaluation to see how we're doing. So it's a roundabout answer to your question, but Minnesota is doing some good things, right? And this is one of them where what we're doing well.
So interesting to hear your perspective and to hear right now what I didn't know, what was happening on the legislative floor and the things that you were bringing forward. And so it's actually comforting as a Minnesotan to hear those things are being looked at closely, not ignored. And constituents should be excited about that, because hopefully that just leads us down an avenue, down a road of something positive coming from this, and people not having a stigma over what this all is. So Senator Hoffman, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you being here with us. I'm going to bring Steph Page back in. Steph, you've got our next panelist that wants to speak with us tonight.
Yes, thank you so much, Senator Hoffman. I loved what you said, that this isn't a political issue, that there's bipartisan support for it, and that we need to remove the stigma. Those were, I want to like clap and cheer if I was in person. Yeah.
Right.
Those things are exactly right on. And I'm so grateful for your passion and support and your work. Just so grateful, so amazing. Tonight, I get to bring on a really dear friend of mine. Her name is Tiffany Jacobson. And I actually only met her a couple months ago, but it was just the right timing that I got to meet her. And she is a single mom. She grew up in a small town in Wisconsin. She's a first-time author and a new public speaker. Tiffany has a passion for justice and raising awareness about domestic violence and trafficking, as she has personally survived it. She is driven to be a voice to the voiceless, and she truly believes that with God and people coming alongside those that are hurting, a difference can be made in their lives. She truly believes if each person steps out in boldness in their faith, that we can be world changers. And that we have a few really brave survivors coming on tonight to share with us. And Tiffany is the first one. And I'm just so grateful that she's joining us tonight. Tiffany, are you there? Let's see. Oh, I see ya. Hey, friend.
Hello?
Hi, there you are.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
So good to see your face. We talked a little earlier, but it's good to see your face, not just your voice. Beautiful. So glad to have you here. So I'm just going to start right in because we don't have a lot of time and I really want to have people hear your story. So would you start by just sharing a little bit about your story?
Sure. I was raised in a home where both my parents were addicts. They oh, okay, I can do this. They were addicted to cocaine, and along with that, when they met, they made me, but as I was kind of a mistake and an accident. And so as they were doing cocaine, they were trafficking cocaine. And not only were they trafficking the cocaine, but they were trafficking me as a little girl. And everything looked so perfect on the inside and the outside of the home as this was going on. I mean, my dad made a lot of money, so it didn't look like, he made everything look perfect. There was always like luxury vehicles on the outside, and went to a private Christian school. And at the age of 3, after my mom was so strung out on cocaine, she had abandoned me and left me alone for 3 weeks. And the officer found me. And so they brought me back to my dad's place, and he was remarried to my stepmom, and he was still trafficking cocaine. And I'm sorry.
You're doing a great job. Thank you so much for sharing with us tonight, my friend. So grateful.
And so I just was told at a very young age that I wasn't worth protecting, I wasn't worth fighting for. And when they found out that this was going on in the household, they took me out of the home in what it was 8th grade, and they put me into a foster home. And then I was safe for a little bit there at the foster home, which had horses, and that's actually where I felt the safest, and God's presence like just flooded onto me. And then my mom had found out I was in a foster home, and then she finally wanted to be a part of my life. My dad had a good substantial amount of money, so she just kind of wanted me for the child support so she could buy drugs and alcohol. She was remarried, so they took me out of my one safe haven and brought me to more chaos. There were more parties, there were more violations. And then the county found out what was going on. They took me out of the high school and then put me in a temporary foster home. And after that, it was only temporary, and the county made me get emancipated from my mom. They declared her unfit, and so I was just in crisis centers, teen centers. By the time I was 16, I was emancipated. When I was 15, I was on the streets. I was wanting to just not even be alive because I didn't have anybody to just be there and hold me and tell me everything was going to be okay. And so a long story short, it's foundations like this that help be a voice for the voiceless, that can be there and be a voice that says, you know what, you are not an object, you are priceless, and we are gonna, you're safe, and you can be there side by side with us, and we can be on the front lines for those. I mean, it's the reason I am sharing my voice is because my friend Jessica, she's also going to be a speaker here. She spoke at a church, and it actually inspired me to, she was sharing of how trafficking is so apparent right now. And like, God just tugged on my heart, if I don't share my voice, then somebody, could maybe possibly overcome. And the more we step out and support foundations like this, we are being on the front lines and being a voice for those and saying you're not alone, because it's a lonely place when you're, they target people that are in foster care, girls that, or it's even in families. And it's just like these girls and these even boys, men need to know that they're not alone and that there is somebody fighting for them. My message my whole life was I'm alone, I'm not worth fighting for. So I just believe that when you help foundations like these, you're telling them that you are worth fighting for and you do have a voice. And that's all. Sorry.
That's exactly it right there. You go, girl. That's it. That's it. You told me earlier when we were on the phone that we need to be on the front lines, exactly what you just said, and that we need to be fighting and having a voice for those who don't have a voice and those who feel like they don't have value, because that's not true. It's not true.
Right.
You have so much value and your story is powerful and you are so beautiful, so grateful. Senator Hoffman was just on, and he said that we need to take away the stigma. And I think your story really shines a light on that. How we sometimes think that there's a certain kind of person who is exploited, or they live in a certain kind of situation. But I know part of your story is that on the outside, everything looked really good. Is that true?
Yeah, very true. Yeah.
So it's important to change that and to shine a light on that really anybody could be vulnerable to exploitation.
Yeah, it can happen in any home. I mean, anywhere.
When you look back on your story, what do you think could have made a difference in your story earlier? What do you think could have helped you? What kind of person do you wish had come along, or what kind of resources do you feel like would have made a difference?
I think like foundations like you have, and just other organizations like support groups. I mean, I've had over like a year of intensive therapy because of my PTSD, and just, foundations like this, and like homes, like, coming alongside and creating a safe environment and empowering these women, and, side by side, and giving them a chance to get jobs, getting them a chance to get an education, and somebody believing in them and say, I'm right here with you. And so is God.
Yeah. And that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. You're so brave, and you're doing an amazing thing. What is one thing that you want the people watching us to know tonight about girls who are being exploited and abused right now?
That you can through you can help them. You can be their hope. You can be their light. You can be, it doesn't have to be much. It can just be a word of encouragement. It can be helping organizations like this, but that makes a big difference in the lives of these girls and men, because they need you more now than ever, because there's thousands of them out there, just maybe even alone on the street, not even wanting to live anymore. But that little bit could be the light of hope that wants them to make them keep moving forward.
Yeah, we need each other, don't we?
Yeah.
We do. Yeah. Well, we're all learning that. I think we need each other. We need our stories to be connected. Thank you so much, my sweet friend, for coming and sharing your story. I wish we were in person. I'd hold your hand, I'd kiss your cheek, I'd hug you. Soon we'll be in person again. Thank you so much for being on tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
What a powerful, strong woman she is.
Yes.
She
inspires me to keep going all the time.
Right. And you know, it was so important. You know, Senator Hoffman said we have to stomp out the stigma, and then it was right there in front of us. I mean, it really is so eye-opening on how things are happening behind closed doors that you just don't know are happening right here in our communities. So, Seth, thank you again for putting all of this together, and your team. You worked so hard. So that was really important to hear Tiffany's story. Okay,
Yeah.
should we move on to our next panelist, our next speaker?
Yeah, one sec. I'm going to take a little break and I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this. We are over at Stories Foundation. If you don't know about us, our dream for almost 8 years is to get in a building. And we want to have a building that's a cafe. It's a place, a hub for awareness. It's a hub for opportunities for people who've experienced things like Tiffany did, where we can come alongside and have job opportunities and even housing opportunities. In our cafe, you'll see a little later, we have some apartments. We want it to be a hub for collaborations. We want it to be a hub for people to come together to understand what's happening in our communities like this, and then to be empowered to make a difference through what you purchase, through education, and then just all of us joining together, connecting our stories. So like I said, we are collecting donations for this building. And at the end of this night, we're going to get to really talk about what it's going to look like and the journey that we've been on. But you can go to storiesfoundation.org/storyline event. And remember, when you give $25 to $49, you get one of those beautiful shirts. So go do that. And I just want to give a shout out to my friend Marnie, who's already donated tonight. Thank you so much, Marnie. So let's keep it going.
I love this. And it's a cute shirt to boot.
It is cute. And it's fair trade.
Oh, I love that even more. You know, I love fair trade. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, let's move on to our next speaker tonight. It's Diana Chaman-Salas. Now, Diana couldn't be here this evening, but she wanted to share a message, but I wanted to share quickly a little bit about Diana. She is the director of the No Wrong Door program, a Hennepin County initiative to fight against the sexual exploitation of youth. Her work is focused on disparity reduction, access to justice, and she is a powerhouse when it comes to food security as a means of fighting human exploitation. Again, Diana couldn't be here tonight, but here is what she wanted to say.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Diana Chaman-Salas, and I'm the director of the No Wrong Door program, which is an initiative to fight against the sexual exploitation of youth at Hennepin County. We provide a comprehensive scope of services to help young victims of sexual exploitation heal while bringing traffickers to justice and raising public awareness on this issue. Our scope involves a variety of goals, from prevention all the way to prosecution. So I want to take this opportunity to share a bit of what we do with you. One of our goals is prevention. For this, we provide early intervention services as well as educational services to promote awareness and reduce vulnerability of youth at risk of being sexually exploited. For example, we just started a new program with a partner agency for both parents as well as high school students to develop tools and strategies to learn about sexual health and sexual exploitation of youth. This year, we hope to reach 400 people. The vast majority of our work is focused on service delivery. We provide services through a victim-centered, trauma-informed approach. Once SCY youth are identified, they are assigned a social worker and are provided with tailored individual service plans. For that, we manage several contracts and partnerships with agencies that provide health, mental therapy, emergency shelter, and we also provide equine therapy and case management, particularly for our LGBTQI youth. Currently, we're providing direct service to around 200 SCY identified youth. During the COVID-19 crisis, we're providing additional support to our partner agencies to secure shelter and potential isolation areas for 450 youth. I'm hoping that we can expand this work in the upcoming weeks. Additionally, we just launched training for Hennepin County employees on how to report cases to Child Protection, as well as how to recognize red flags of sexual exploitation and what to do to support youth. We are currently working on developing an internal protocol to strengthen our identification and assessment. And finally, we work closely with prosecution and law enforcement through MDTs or multidisciplinary teams to share information, and we have developed key partnerships with over 20 agencies across the county and the state. I think that immediate needs are clearly defined by our crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic is truly shedding a light on the issue of housing. And what I mean by that is that homeless youth that were already at risk of being sexually exploited and trafficked are even more so under the current circumstances. But along with this safe space, I believe that providing therapy, emotional support, and mental health is key. The SCY youth that I have personally come across, and the reason why we support trauma-informed services is because most of our SCY youth have been through extremely traumatic experiences. Research shows that SCY youth have high rates of childhood trauma exposure, homelessness, a history of sexual assault, victimization related to sexual orientation, and a large etc. So this history of childhood maltreatment oftentimes is the root cause of mental health conditions and substance abuse. Most sexually exploited youth come in contact with frontline workers when they are in crisis. So the immediate needs are housing, food security, therapy. But I think that in the long term, we should aim to not only provide stability for youth, meaning a place to stay and a steady income away from the so-called lifestyle, but to help them develop their capacities and reach their full potential. I think that we as agencies need to start investing in education, mentorship, and supporting our youth so that they could become their own advocates and their own leaders. I would say that the key to support sexually exploited or trafficked youth is to be there for them no matter what. This is a population that is highly mobile. Sometimes youth don't accept the help or have a sense of loyalty towards their traffickers. Sometimes they run away. And this is hard to understand for some people. So what I'm trying to say is that we cannot impose help, but we can have open arms for our youth, because quite often this is something that has been missing in their lives. I envision this system of individuals, nonprofits, community groups, and agencies as a support network. I think that we work better when we reduce silos and share efforts. And I think that we can also instill a sense of systemic change by looking into reducing disparities as a means of preventing sexual exploitation and trafficking. We know that poverty, adversity, and trauma are key elements that make youth vulnerable. So if we tackle these, we can help our youth grow healthier and safer. And finally, an important message that I want to share is that we need to start seeing SCY youth as survivors instead of victims. If we seek to empower survivors by providing them the tools to stabilize themselves, to develop their capacities, and to heal, then our work will be sustainable. I believe that sharing our voices, and particularly the voices of the survivors, is truly empowering. I think that the more survivor representation we have among our agencies, the better and the more impactful the programs and policies that we shape will be. And I also think that events like this are a wonderful way to raise public awareness on this issue. Learning from each other and knowing that there is such a huge effort coming from different agencies, organizations, and individuals is really encouraging. As Stephanie, the director of the Stories Foundation, pointed out, every person has a story and every story counts. So I would encourage you to listen to others, particularly if they're going under difficult circumstances. I would like to encourage community organizations, school districts, law enforcement officers, neighbors, anybody who's listening. If you ever come across a person who is in crisis or seem to be in need, and if you're willing to listen to their story without judgment, but with compassion, please know that you might be facing a sexually exploited youth. And that right there is a great opportunity to reach out and help them and potentially change their lives. So, no effort is in vain, no action is too small to make an impact. And if you're more interested in my program, please feel free to reach out. My email is diana.chamansalas@hennepin.us. Thank you.
Well, wow. I don't know if I'm unmuted or not, but what a powerful.
You are.
You know, yeah. I had to write down, no effort is in vain, no action is too small. And isn't that true?
I wrote that down too. Great minds, Kelly.
Great.
I love it.
You know, yes. Just hearing her passion for supporting these youth. And it was just uplifting to hear her speak. So we really appreciate all that she is doing to fight against the sexual exploitation of youth. Really great to hear from her.
And I loved how she talked about how we need to reduce the silos when she talked about community organizations and nonprofits and agencies and individuals, that we all need to be working together more. And then she talked about mentoring too. And I think sometimes we think, oh, well, helping vulnerable youth is for the Dianas of the world. But how many of us know a teenager who could use a mentor?
Right. So, and the impact on their life, just the one person, just the one mentor, how that can change a direction that they're going, truly. So yeah, that was so important. Wow. She's amazing.
She is. She's great. So I just want to say too that on the storiesfoundation.org/storyline event, we have all our speakers, and we will have links, right? It's not linked up yet, but before the night is over, there'll be links so you can go access all of their contact information and follow up with them. And then we're going to be sending out a follow-up PDF of ways that you can connect with these speakers, ways that you can help. So all of that's coming to you. So if you go to that storiesfoundation.org/storyline event, you can sign up for the newsletter and get in on all of those goodies. And then I see that I have a slide up here. I think I'm supposed to talk about that if you give $50 donation or more, you get one of these mugs.
Those are so cute.
Aren't they cute?
They live,
share, change. And that's what we say at Stories is live your story, share your story, and we'll see stories change around us. So there you
can go. Never have too many coffee mugs.
No, and it's a really good size because I drink a lot of coffee.
Coffee or soup.
Yes. Cereal, ice cream. It's fine.
I wasn't going to go there. I let you do that.
I went there. And then I also wanted to say that I did some math, and math isn't my strength in life. So you're going to have to forgive me if it's wrong. Someone can correct me. But earlier I took the number 200,000, which is what we would like to raise before July 1st. And I divided it by 5,000, which is our crazy goal of how many people we would like to watch this event when it's all said and done. And I got $40. So there you go. If you want to give an average gift of $40, you won't get this coffee mug, but you'll get a shirt. You could give $60 and then you'll get the coffee mug and the coffee, which is locally roasted and fair trade. But that makes it really, doable and tangible. So there you go.
You did the math. I didn't check the math, but I feel like it's right.
Sounds right, doesn't it? I did use my calculator.
I think it's right.
Oh, okay. Let's move on. Yes, okay. I think Wendy, let's see. Wendy, are you on? Let's check.
Okay. So funny. Technology, we all depend on it so much now. And sometimes they're right there. Sometimes it takes a few minutes.
Yeah.
We're going to hear from Wendy Lowry next. And she has quite an incredible story. We'll see if she pops up here. We'll give her just a few more seconds. Oh, I think we're getting close. Okay, so I will introduce Wendy. Wendy, she's an amazing woman. She says she was rescued by God from years of chronic addiction and near death in 1991. Now, since then, she has spent years trying to rescue as many as she can from the same fate. She resigned in 2019 after 20 years with Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge as the jail liaison and women's director to start her own ministry called Seven Bells, which focuses strictly on rescue and restoration of broken women to God. We are excited to have Wendy here. Is she joining us yet?
Wendy,
Are you here?
I'm going to message her.
Okay.
Wendy is really amazing because she now runs Seven Bells, like you just said, and she has all these women that she's coming alongside and helping. So I don't know, maybe we'll move on and see if she can come on later. How about that?
Okay, that sounds great. You want to take the next panelist?
I do want to. So we'll move on to Gina, and Gina is someone that I had the privilege of talking to earlier this week for the first time. She's a new friend, and she also has a personal story that includes trafficking. And I think what is so important about learning about trafficking is hearing people's stories. I think when we listen to each other's stories, it takes away a lot of those preconceived ideas that we just have. We just have those because of how we grew up or the information that was relayed to us, or whatever. And so hearing people's stories and really listening to people's stories, which I think is something else that Diana said too, that really breaks down those walls. So let's see if Gina's here to share with us. Is Gina here? There
Hi,
she
can you hear
is.
me?
I can. Hi, Gina.
Hi.
So great to see you.
Good to see you too.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. You're in Arizona, so that's
Yes.
really happy for you. Is it nice?
It's nice at the moment, but it's about to be in the triple digits this weekend, so.
Nope. Air conditioning. Give me the pool. Oh, well, Gina, I'm wondering if you could just start by sharing a little bit of your story with us tonight.
Absolutely. So I grew up in a large family. I have 8 brothers and sisters, always in church. My parents, they own their own company, so everybody was always involved. But there was honestly too many kids. My parents didn't have time to pay attention to all of us. So I was abused from the time I was 5 until I was 13. And then I found a teacher who I opened up to. And he took advantage of me until I was 17. And sorry, excuse me.
You're okay.
So I moved away from Michigan. That's where I'm originally from. And I got into an abusive relationship, and that went really south, and I moved to Minnesota. And I met my first pimp. And it was not that at first. I mean, it was just another relationship. And I lost my job, and I needed to have some kind of income. And he said, there's a way that you can make money and you don't really have to do anything. And so I agreed to do it. And as soon as I started, he became really abusive. And I got to the point where he had fractured my eye and broke my jaw. And it was just always like that. And then he got locked up, and I started looking for a different type of work. But I stumbled across the wrong type of work again. And it was an ad that was too good to be true ad. But again, I was only 18, 19 at the time. And so I went to an interview, And I signed a contract saying that I wouldn't say anything, that it was just adult entertainment. But there was no details, and it was a confidentiality that if I said anything, I'd be sued and all sorts of stuff. And so it was across country and everywhere after that. And I got pregnant and had my children. And I worked up until actually July of last year. And in January of last year, he broke my nose. And it was kind of the hit that burst the delusional bubble that I was living in. And I stayed in bed for a week, and I was staring at the wall. I'm like, if he doesn't kill me, I'm going to kill me, and I can't die. So I got to do something. So I've been fighting that ever since.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So personal, and it really is amazing that you can help us to understand why this happens. And when you look back on your life, what are the vulnerabilities that made you susceptible to be exploited?
I think it was the fact that when I did reach out for help, there was never anybody there. So, and it's when I, with the teacher, he should have reported it. He should have reported what I had told him. And so just the fact that it was just continuous and ongoing, it was like, there's no point in like even trying to fight it. And it was always turned into that, I guess because I was a female, so I'm good at being seductive, and those are traits that you can monetize on, and so that just use your capabilities and your experiences to make money instead of actually working through it.
Yeah, really degrading you, not treating like a human being, but as an object, really, to be to provide this service because this is what you're here for.
Right.
Yeah. What, as you've come out of a life of exploitation, what has been your experience? What resources have or have not been available to you? What have been your challenges as you are, what has it been, like a year and a half or so?
It's been since actually August of last year.
Okay.
So it's been about 9 months.
Yeah, so not even.
So I faced a lot of challenges with that. First off, a court battle ensued over my children. And as far as resources, there really weren't any. Like, even with all of the domestic violence, everything was like a rabbit hole. All the resources I ever found were a phone number to call another phone number to call another phone number to call another phone number, and there was never any end of that. And then when I did get to the end of the rabbit hole and actually spoke with a person, there were those were like inpatient type shelters for young girls who didn't have children, and it was just a continuous search. And so I did find one group for domestic violence, and I was amazed. I left a voicemail, and a woman called me back, and I've worked with them. I've gotten my boys in counseling, and it's been amazing. And it's helped a lot, but just that one resource, if I hadn't kept looking, I probably would have just felt so defeated. I mean, because I really was at that point.
It's easy to give up when you feel like you're alone, but it looks like you're alone too. It looks like there's no one there to come alongside you. I'm so grateful you persevered. I'm so grateful for that domestic violence center that has come alongside you. They should get a gold star.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. Why do you think women don't leave the life or get help? What is your thought on that?
So there's kind of many sides to it, but one of the biggest sides is that domestic violence in this lifestyle around these groups of people, it's widely accepted and nobody speaks of it. You see it. You know about it,
Yeah.
but nobody talks about it, and there's no support to actually speak up or get help because it's accepted.
Normal.
Yep. And then if you do say something adverse about it, then you are really looked down on as, you just can't take it. And so it had left me with the perspective that women who have relationships that work out are just the ones who are better at keeping their mouths shut. And, I'm learning more and more that was such a skewed perspective and far from what should be just experienced.
Yeah. So really just a lot of lies
Mm-hmm.
that are swirled around and perpetuated in that environment and in that community, and it keeps people in bondage, in a like a mental and bondage. Yeah. Wow. What are the names of your boys, and how old are they?
Josiah and Solomon. They're 7 now. They're about to be 8.
And you're homeschooling them like the rest of the world.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much, Gina, for sharing. If there's anything that one thing you want to tell the people watching about exploitation and trafficking, that just shine a light on it, and something you think people just don't understand, what's that one thing? This is a surprise. I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this.
That's okay. I would say that one thing is that it's not always, it could be anybody, it could be anywhere. I was always in nice hotels. I was always in, nice clothes, driving nice cars. I looked very professional. I didn't walk around like I had been walking on the streets. I was, very discreet, very businesslike, but it could be anybody. And there needs to be more support. And the judgment is that if more of us speak up and actually take that risk, then there will be a change. But it's the silence that keeps it continuing.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being brave and for speaking up and sharing your story. It matters. It really matters, and it makes a difference. Something you said I wanted to comment on, and now I am not. You did not come to Minneapolis expecting to be exploited or choosing exploitation. No. You just came looking for what?
So I got a job working in a medical research company, and it was great. It was absolutely great. It was just a turn of events that I ended up moving in with this person. I was actually moving into an apartment, and he moved in, and I didn't know that meant I didn't know him helping me find an apartment meant he was moving in too. And I was really young, so I didn't know how to address that. And that's just how it, turned into me working.
Yeah. I can't help but think that if someone had been around to be a healthy relationship for you, a safe place to help you see and help you navigate that, maybe it would have been different. I think that's what we can call it, people. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story so that we can understand more. Really grateful. We'll talk soon. Thanks, Gina.
Thank you.
Wow. What a powerful message she shared. It could be anyone. This is really opening my eyes because there is a stigma surrounding it. And I feel like I'm not alone in being privy to that, thinking like, oh, it's just this type of person, right? And I feel like that's what we're missing. And I'm so happy that we're sharing that that's not who this always is, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you to Gina for that, sharing her message. And wow, Steph, you asked great questions.
Thanks, Kelly. Wow, that's so nice of you to say. Professional question asker that you are.
Well, I understand we have Wendy Lowry. She is joining us now. Wendy, we are so excited to have you. I'll really briefly reintroduce Wendy. Wendy, she was rescued by God from years of chronic addiction and created her own ministry called Seven Bells. And Wendy, we're so happy to have you here. Are you joining us now? I think we're going to have her, possibly.
That's what they tell us.
oh, I think
There
she's
she
here.
is. Here I am.
Can you see and hear us?
I can.
Great. Wendy, thank you so
I'm
much for
trying
joining
to-
us.
I haven't done this kind of a call before, so I'm not quite sure what I'm not doing.
We are all very new. You are great. We can see you, we can hear you, and that's perfect.
Okay, good. Good.
So tell us a little bit about your background. We introduced you, but tell us a little bit who you are and what you do.
Well, I came up to Minnesota in 1999, and I had been at that point 8 years out of a lifestyle of pretty chronic addiction and probably a nightclub scene. And I wasn't actually in that lifestyle, but I certainly was part of that group of people. So when I came up here, it was to work for Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge. And I went through many roles there, 10 years out in the correctional facilities. And then I became the women's director for 8 years. And in those two roles, I saw both sides of this picture continuously. And then working as a women's director, I had a lot of time personally with the women. And I started to see the commonalities and the ways that this started or how they got into it. And then they would leave programming for addiction. And then the pieces that they really needed were not out there. So I just became really burdened for that gap. And so a year ago, I left and came out and started my own nonprofit to just gather them and try to build a safe community for them, for each other, so they can keep rescuing each other. So we're starting out, but we're very busy.
That is Seven Bells. So explain what Seven Bells is and what it does.
When it started out, I didn't really have a vision. I just knew that I loved these women, and I was tired of funerals, and I was tired of the calls that I just couldn't. I wished I could have saved them from getting brought back into a lifestyle that was so deadly. And so my whole thing was, I'm going to help them. I will do whatever it takes. And that's how I left a year ago. And now we have 3 homes that are full of women that live together that kind of help each other. So we have 3 houses, and we have our own pastor that our church gifted us with, and his wife, Vitaly and Eugenia Kashubin, who work closely with them along with myself. And we just mentor and help get to the deep trauma and the issues that probably brought them into this to begin with. So we work with a real holistic approach now to try to just create safety and family.
When you talk about it, you can tell the joy that it brings you to be able to do this with women.
Yes.
You can just see it in your face.
Yeah,
it brings you joy to
me.
create this safe environment.
Yes. I wanted this for so long for them that it does bring me great joy just to be with them and to watch them just laughing and smiling and going to work. And yes, it's everything to me.
How important are conversations like the one we're having right now with the hundreds of people that are watching right now? How important are these kinds of conversations about this?
They're really critical because I don't think people realize how common this is and how many girls that they probably know are actually already being brought into this lifestyle. I feel that social media is a great big door now in that people who actually end up reaching out to girls and drawing them in different ways that are very enticing, that they would not understand were going to end up there. They're trolling for certain things. They're looking for girls that have low self-esteem, that are in personal crisis, that are even sad, that are just having a hard time. And then they start reaching out to them and they start offering them attention, affirmation, dinner. They just bring them in slowly. And then pretty soon they're hooked in by a lifestyle, or they're hooked in without the hope of getting out. And then it's many times the trauma, the initial trauma of, oh no, and the sexual assaults that happen right away, then they are drug addicted. They need drugs to keep doing it. And then they become addicted and then they stay in it because they need the drugs. And it's really hard to get out because they are unable to function unless they have the drugs that are being given to them to keep doing this.
And you're
So-
giving them this safe haven with 7 Bells. What are your needs right now?
I don't even know how to answer that. We want more space. I would love to have a next step for them where we have an apartment building where I can move them from all being stacked on top of each other to actually being able to separate them out better, where we have 3 in an apartment versus 12 in one house. Obviously we're so new that people don't even know we exist. So funds are a major issue. You know, there's no paid staff. We're just serving. And everything we do is donation. We don't have any ties to any other organization. We aren't connected to anyone. We're not sponsored by anyone. We're simply out here making it with what we can gather. And most of our time is spent with the women. I tell people I'm not a marketer. I'm not a fundraiser. I'm not out networking. I'm just spending all of my time with the women. So we pretty much need everything. So, but we do very well. I feel that in spite of just starting with nothing, we have really done well for 1 year. So,
You know, my final question is we know the women that you're supporting, they need a voice, they need support like you're giving them, but what else are their immediate needs?
there's so much mental health involved in this by the time they get to the point of being rescued, if they are rescued, because many are not. There's a lot of suicide in this group, and there's a lot that just see their life as so wrecked that there's no point in coming out. And we had one young lady that we rescued from the hospital. We knew her well. Her friends were already with me in December, and it took her forever to get her will to live back. She just stayed in bed and there was not much we could do. And we got her vibrant again, working at a job at an outlet mall. She was doing so amazing, having a bad week, and her pimp reached back out to her and pulled her back in. And all of us are still desperately trying to connect with her, but she told me, I'm not worth saving. Don't keep my bed. Give it to a girl that's worth it, because I'm not worth saving. And that is the part that is hard, is that they don't have any value. They have been stripped of that many times early in their life. They were early molestation victims. They were bullied in school. Somewhere they lost their value. And if that piece was stolen from them early, that's going to be the really hard part to get back. And that's why providing them with family and community, and just having their sisters just heap affection and love on them, having them all do that together is so critical. But it still makes it really hard, because it takes a long time to get that back. So that's the part where I guess I'm always looking for people to come in and just really not necessarily get on the inside, but just whatever piece could be granted. We always are looking for crafting supplies, things that help them see how amazingly gifted they are, because most of them are. They're incredibly skilled, very artistic. This group especially is a vibrant group of women who have been broken. And when you get that back, there's no stopping them. They're so amazing. So I just want to see them find that inner passion, and that would be the piece that would really help me to think they're going to make it at this point.
What you're doing is just incredible. Your heart is huge, and it was really great to chat with you. And again, you can see the joy on your face when you speak about it. And
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, and what you're doing is so incredible. So we thank you. And on behalf of Stories Foundation, really, your work should be commended. So thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, Steph. Well, I know we're going to move on. We've got several more panelists to get to tonight, but man, what an amazing program she's put together. 3 homes she was talking about. How many women are in each home? She mentioned 12 in one home. That's incredible. So it's events like this. Oh, we can't hear you. I think maybe you're muted. I want to hear your lovely voice.
I'm back. Yes, I think what Wendy didn't say, I know that right now in our current situation, she would take toilet paper. She would take kitchen utensils. They just opened a new home. So they do have those immediate tangible needs. And then what I love that she said is 2 things. She said that there's people trolling for the vulnerabilities. Did you catch that? That they're
Yes.
literally, they're looking
Yes.
for sadness. They're looking for any of those things. And then she said at the end, when you asked her what she really needed, is she just needs healthy community to come alongside these women. It's that connecting our stories. And we really do have so much power, I think.
She even said we need craft supplies. I mean, it's
yes.
to hone in and tap into a person's a passion that they've had but have stomped down for years because of the turmoil they've been living in. Just little things like that play a role in healing. It really does. So,
yeah, I think that when we talk about this kind of stuff, we think that we have to be Wendy to make a difference, right? That we have to go start 3 homes.
Right.
But we don't have to be Wendy. We just have to be us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We can just watch events like this and get the word out and have the conversation, because that's where it all starts, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think we're going to move on to our next panelist. We want to welcome Jessica Bartholomew. She is with ACT United. She has 25 years of experience working with children, teens, and families in youth outreach, domestic and foreign missions. She's also a police officer and brings firsthand information and experience to the issues of youth sexual exploitation and trafficking. Currently, she is the executive director of ACT United, a nonprofit organization uniting communities in awareness, prayer, and prevention to end the sexual exploitation and trafficking of children and teens. She's also written a book about it, you guys. She's an author. The book is called Youth Aware Teen Exploitation Prevention Program, and it helps to educate and empower teens to go from learners to this generation's anti-trafficking leaders. Jessica, are you with us? Every time the screen moves, I get really excited.
So I don't know, can you hear me? Asked you to start, okay, let's see. All right, maybe that did the trick, I don't know. So you're frozen, everybody's frozen on my end. Oh, I see Stephanie moving now, so maybe, oh.
Ellie, did we lose you? Hi, Jess. How are you?
I am good.
Good. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
I feel like we lost Kelly. She froze. Well, why don't you go ahead and start out by telling us about ACT United?
Sure. So ACT United is a 501c3 organization in Minnesota. Even though our work is in other states and we have some global partners, but we started about 5 years ago in the anti-trafficking space. And what we do is we connect communities together in awareness, prayer, and prevention. Everything we do is in a model of prevention, because we believe you don't end something by responding to it. You are going to end sexual exploitation and trafficking by getting ahead of it in prevention, so it doesn't have to happen in the first place. So that's the model that we work in, and the different things that we do. We only do a couple of things, the things that we were called into the space to do, and one of those things is professional training. So we have different education programs, CEU programs, and training programs for professionals. Our teachers and educators, our nurses, doctors, emergency room staff, pregnancy centers and teen health centers, those places that really are frontline workers, not just police officers when it comes to exploitation. And then our most exciting program, the one that I love every time I'm out there, this is where I get all excited and the spit flies and everything goes crazy and haywire, but that's with our teen program, the Youth Aware Teen Exploitation Prevention Program. So we have a program for teens that's in schools and churches working in prevention. Also, we have a prevention education piece to the program, but what I love about it and what's dynamic about it is it also moves students from learners to leaders, because they're really the voice of this generation. They really are the solution. And the more they're educated and empowered to be the voice to this generation, that's when we're going to start to see the needle move, because they're the ones that are targeted. They're the ones that are there online, at the mall, at school. They have a powerful voice to their peers and to their siblings. So when we can empower that voice in their story, then they make the biggest difference. Each youth is going to reach so many other youths just in their daily life. So we do a lot of prevention program work. And yep. I guess one of the things that I'm wanting to make sure is mentioned tonight too, that's in our program, is that sexual exploitation and trafficking also affects our males, our boys, our young men, and our transgender population. And so our program is sure to incorporate everybody's story. We really came into the space to fill certain gaps, and one of those gaps was the different systems of trafficking, like family systems of trafficking, occult systems of trafficking, and make sure that everybody's story is represented with, it affects all genders, all ethnicities, and all communities. There's really no population exempt, unfortunately.
Yeah, you know, two things that well, there's a lot I love about you, but one of the things is when I first met you, I was so impressed that you were going into schools, because you go elementary all the way through high school, and you'll do education on sex trafficking, sextortion, all of that. And then I love, we share a heart for collaboration. So yeah, that's something. And then you do have that strong voice to talk about men and boys who have been exploited. And I just appreciate all of those things about you and Act United so much. But I want you to just share a little bit about that sweet spot, which is that youth. How do we help youth? And I think that goes back to the beginning of your story. You, as a police officer, seeing the other side of what would happen. How can we empower our youth to have the tools they need so that they do not fall to exploitation?
Yeah, I mean, that's really my story, is the different 25 years of experience with teens, and plus my own experiences and story as a kid, and then being in law enforcement. And the thing with law enforcement is you're called in at the end. You know, you're a part of interdiction and justice and restoration, and you know, after these crimes have already happened. And so when I came into starting, you know, founding Act United, it was, I need to take everything that I know now at the end of this, yeah, and help train and educate and share and awareness and do whatever I can do to go way back here into prevention. Because when I'm talking with youth and talking with kids, and these things have happened in their life, there are some common vulnerabilities. There are some commonalities in their story that I wanted to share and be a part of. Let's go back then. If we know these vulnerabilities are common, let's go back and start erasing these vulnerabilities. If we see gaps here, let's go back and fill those gaps. Let's be a community of nonprofits and law enforcement and government and community leaders that go back and fill those gaps, strip the vulnerabilities, remove the targets off their back so that it doesn't have to happen.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk more, even deeper, and let's talk about that online. Right now we're in COVID. You just did an amazing training on your Act United page, a couple, like, I don't know, I'm losing track of all time, week ago or something like that. I don't know what day it is.
It's April-December. It's April-December. Yeah, it was about a week and a half ago or so.
Yes. Yeah. And I would love for you just to share, I know we don't have a ton of time left, but just to share some really great tips and tools, as you know, for parents of kids and teens that are now on devices even more than they were before, and it was already concerning right before.
Yeah. So COVID is kind of doing for sexual exploitation crimes online what the Super Bowl does for sex trafficking, right? COVID-19 brought about a significant increase in our youth being online. And with COVID, it isn't just for their learning activities, it's also for their social activities. So now we have an increase of kids online significantly, like 4,700% more per day online activities of youth that are under the age of 18 right now. Wow. So that's significant. Now, so the good news is, though, that now we are wanting to learn more. We're realizing we kind of have to learn more. And so that's good. Let's just push ourselves, right there and learn more about it. But it's also important to remember, just like with the Super Bowl and sex trafficking, that these online cyber crimes are happening every day. They already have been, and they will continue after our current global situation is over. But the crimes that we are seeing and that have the potential for a significant increase right now are those cyber sexual exploitation crimes, which include sexting, sextortion, and child pornography. So, and they all overlap, and at the end of the day, they are all the same. They are all felony child pornography. And what these crimes entail is youth that meet somebody online and give away or share or convinced into sharing a sexually explicit image of themselves. Yeah. And once that happens, our youth now lose control over that image. They've given it away to somebody online. Sometimes it's people that they know in real life. And there's a lot of pressure. They're in a culture where it's normal. This is how you flirt. This is how you show somebody you like them. If you really liked me, you would, because so-and-so did, for his girlfriend or for her boyfriend. And it's somebody that they know. But the second type of person or offender or predator online is the complete stranger. And sometimes they're bold enough to be exactly who they are. Hey, I'm a 55-year-old man. I know you're in 6th grade, but they say who they are. But most often what we see are fake profiles where the predator sets up a profile to be that 3rd grader, to be that 7th grader, or to be that senior in high school or that freshman in college. That's kind of intriguing, right? Or an intriguing, interesting relationship to have. And once that connection is made, and once that first image is sent, they have now lost control over that relationship and that image. And that is what leads to the further sexual exploitation, which is the crime of sextortion, which is to use tactics like fraud, coercion, threats to get more explicit material. And we're seeing kids that victimized by this as young as grade school, 1st and 2nd and 3rd grade we've seen. That's not uncommon, unfortunately. And then of course our teenagers and, older students or youth also being impacted by this. And it's important to know once again that these crimes are not just affecting girls, it's affecting all genders. And in 2013, 50% of minor victims of sextortion were males. Last year, I believe it was 25% that were reported to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children through their cyber tip line. They have fielded about 1,500 reports of minors being exploited in this way online, and 25% last year were males. So it's affecting all genders. And here's the thing is, this is a crime happening in every community, in rural, suburban, and city, bedrooms and living rooms and schools on their digital device. It's that device. It's no longer geography. Don't go here, don't hang out there.
It's the common denominator.
Device. The common denominator is the device. And that's what we see when you get to the bottom of it.
So you just freaked out 100 parents right now. What would you say to them? What do you don't say sorry. This is good, necessary information, but what do you say?
I
say,
to the parents, do not freak out. Knowledge is power. This is the perfect timing, the perfect opportunity to re-examine what you know about online crimes and online activity and exploitation and sexting and sextortion and child pornography. It's the perfect time right now to re-examine what you know and then have that conversation. Now, for prevention too, because this is preventable. This is 100% preventable, okay? And in your conversation, let's do two things. First of all, let's talk about the tools that are available to you as a parent. You have parental controls. You can download software and filters, Bark, Net Nanny, Covenant Eyes. You can shut the Wi-Fi off at 10 o'clock. Make sure kids and everybody uses their devices in a common area of the house where everybody's kind of walking by and chit-chatting and can, see what's going on online. But then I'll tell you, the number one prevention tool is to have consistent messages and conversations about their value, their personal value. When you transport me in front of a couple thousand kids in a high school at an assembly, this is where I run around and look obnoxious, but at least it grabs their attention. But it's because I want to just look each and every one of them in the face and in the eyes and say, you're important. You have value. You are worth more than being reduced to a photo or a video that somebody gets to control. You are worth it. And also having hope for their future, to understand the decisions that they're making today do impact tomorrow. And if you send that photo, you've lost control, and it's a digital footprint, forever. So the kind of kids that don't want to skirt around the rules and go find, a Wi-Fi hotspot somewhere else are the kind of kids that really have a strong sense of their personal value and hope for the future. So they know, they feel confident and know that they're worth some pretty good, protective, safe decisions today.
Yeah. And I think that we can all think of a teenager or a child in our life that we can speak value and worth over. Like, that is not a complicated thing to ask communities to be about, is speaking that truth over children. That's fun. That's the fun part.
It's powerful and it's empowering. So absolutely use your voice to speak that life and value and hope.
Thank you so much, friend, for coming on. I could listen to you talk all the live long day. You're so powerful. We're going to be sending out links to Act United and Jessica and everything she's up to in our follow-up email. So make sure that you're heading over to storiesfoundation.org/storyline event. And Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Kelly, are you back?
I'm back.
Woohoo!
I'm sorry.
That was
Talita,
crazy.
I missed the beginning of Jessica's intro and all of that, but I am so glad that it wasn't. I thought it was everybody and we lost everyone. I was scrambling, but it looks like it went off without a hitch. Thank you, Steph. And man,
No problem. We got it.
So when she said it's the device, yes, and you said you're scaring hundreds of parents. Yes, we should be scared, right? But
we're letting strangers into our home.
Right. We would never let a stranger into our home, right? We keep our doors locked at night. We put our we have Ring doorbells at every house in my neighborhood, it seems.
Yeah.
But we're letting them in on our device. So wow, what a powerful message. I'm glad that I got back on this Zoom call so I can.
Me too.
Well, I want to talk, Steph, with you about the demand, because in meeting you last year and learning about your story, I live in a bubble. I'm thinking I'm not the only one. And the demand, why do we have sex trafficking? Why do we have sexual exploitation? What is the catalyst? What is the driver for this? When you get asked that question, what's your answer to that?
Yeah. Just like with any industry, you don't have a product unless there's a demand for it. And if there wasn't a demand for sex, you wouldn't need to sell sex. I was actually talking to a mutual friend of ours a couple months ago, and he is in law enforcement. And he said, if we can figure out how to make the demand go away, then people would sell something else instead of humans. We wouldn't sell humans for sex if there wasn't demand. And we really have a demand because of our over-sexualized culture that uses sex to sell everything all the time, and pornography. Pornography feeds human trafficking. It feeds sex trafficking. It feeds it because when you look at pornography, it hits all the right pleasure centers in our brain that being addicted to methamphetamine does. It works very similarly in our brain as a drug, as a very addictive drug. And because of the internet and the ability for pornography to be accessed at any time, and not just one kind, or not the pornography of our grandparents' generation, not a Playboy or even a movie. This is evolving. It's evolving, and it's extremely violent. It's extremely degrading. I wouldn't even call it sex, and yet it's a lot of children's first exposure to sex. It's their first sex ed lesson per se. And so when we look at human trafficking, if you ask anyone about human trafficking or sex trafficking, and we have it because of a demand, and it really is fed because of an addiction to sex, because of a need to feed an addiction, and that is really pushed forward, move forward because of pornography in our world today.
And isn't it that because it is so abusive, and because it involves child pornography, when people see it, they're kind of desensitized to it.
Yes.
Because it's not what we think of sex being. It's not what we think of, the intimate relationship we have with our spouse or our partner. It's very different than that, right?
Yes. Yeah, it really is training young minds to not look at people, as human beings with value, but it's training them to look at people as objects. I used to go talk in schools similar to Jessica, and I used to make teenagers look each other in the eye, because we've stopped doing that. We've stopped seeing each other as human beings, and what value do you bring to the world? We just kind of think about sex as, what can I get out of it? Or it's like a transactional thing. And pornography and our over-sexualized culture for sure feeds into that narrative. So yeah.
Wow, what a great conversation. Okay, I'm so glad I'm back. I felt lost.
I am too. We're going to invite Ben and Amy Brand on now. And Ben and Amy are some dear friends of mine, and I've known them for quite a while. They were college sweethearts. They met in 2001. They've been married for 16 years. They found Jesus together. They love him when they were in premarital classes, and he's been their secret weapon through a lot of different hardships, as they're going to tell us about here in a minute. Ben is a senior project control specialist for Westinghouse in their nuclear energy department. And I am not going to lie, I have absolutely no idea what that means he does, except that it makes him sound very smart. And Amy is a homeschooling mom who loves redecorating their home, and she isn't battling chronic illness. And they have 2 girls, ages 13 and 8. Ben and Amy, are you here with us? I see. Oh, there you are. Hey, friends.
Hi.
So good to see you guys. How are you?
You too.
We're good.
Good. Okay, well, why don't you go ahead and start by telling us a little bit about yourselves? I just said how long you've been married, so you don't have to say that. But anything you want to add to what I just said about you?
Anything you want to add? I don't know.
I mean, I said a lot of good things. That was great. Let's just get right into it. Why is human
over here?
Can you hear? Oh,
They're here at the event watching with us.
I love it. Hi, girls. So good to have you. I'm so glad. Okay, let's get into it. Why is human trafficking and exploitation a topic that is close to your heart as a couple?
Sure. Well, I'll start.
Go ahead.
My background is I endured sexual abuse as a child, and I dealt with depression in high school, and didn't realize that I was actually one of the vulnerable ones to trafficking until just a few years ago. Excuse me, when I came to an event similar to this and learned about vulnerabilities and learned that I was that person, and then I missed it by this much. Thankfully, because I did end up turning to an older man, and he was not a great man, but he wasn't trafficking me. So that was a real eye opener for me. I went from that relationship into this relationship, and I married Ben partially because he was safe and would never do anything to hurt me, and he was the guy that everybody loved. Can we clone him? Just a really good guy that I've yet to meet somebody that doesn't like him. And so that ended up not totally being the case. I'll let you kind of.
And so for me, my journey through this has to deal with the pornography part of it. And that started early on in my life. And it was very intermittent too. So I was actually even thinking about today and stuff, the time that kind of started was 3rd grade. It was basically being invited to a birthday party and watching something I shouldn't have. We were all watching it and stuff. It wasn't like what you would think normal, pornography would be and stuff. It was a normal movie that was out there, the mainstream movie, but it's something at that age I shouldn't have been watching. And then, fast forward to say like high school, later on in high school and stuff, I remembered that there was a time when one of my friends, we went to his older brother's house, and he was actually a cop at that time. He had just started being a cop, but he had pornography there too. And there was this moment one night where that was happening too. And that's when I actually first, saw that at that time. And then I think early in college, it started to kind of escalate more. And so for me, it was more of a progression, and it started becoming an addiction and stuff like that. So, it started off, early in age with this one thing, and then just being, around it, not necessarily looking for it, but just, being invited to certain things, and then all of a sudden it's there. So yeah, it kind of progressed that way. And obviously this all happened before our marriage. And so I brought that part of it into our marriage, and, she had no idea.
No, it was about 1.5 years into our marriage when I actually caught him looking at it. And
right.
And yeah.
Yeah.
That
So
was
that's
fun.
that was the
Do
beginning.
you feel like that pornography has been helpful for your marriage or harmful for your marriage?
Harmful,
Yeah.
but helpful in getting to the bottom of, your problems that you might have, and actually like bringing them to light.
Yeah.
And that's like obviously a big thing, like with everyone that's speaking stuff, they want to be heard. They want, they want someone to hear about this so they can get it out in the open and stuff. And so like for me, that I can look back at my journey and stuff, since we've been married, since, everything had started and stuff. And I can tell that what really helped me was when I chose to go do something about it, because early on, when she found out, she was the one that was trying to line things up and get me help and stuff, and I wasn't doing the action part of it. And so it took, I think it was probably that was probably around 2005 or so. And about 2015, I had kind of relapsed at that point in time and stuff, but I chose then at that point in time to take certain actions and to seek people out in our local church for a mentor. I reached out to a friend of mine to basically meet with on a weekly basis early on in that time period and stuff. And that really helped, because then I was able to share my story and my difficulties and stuff, and just being heard and stuff, and being able to talk to someone about that, and someone that's genuinely interested in your own, you know, your own health and well-being and stuff really helped me.
Yeah, and I think the culture wants to say things like, well, all guys look at pornography, or maybe it's something you should invite into your marriage and make your intimacy better. And it actually does the complete opposite. Our sex life was horrible. It was something that we fought about all the time. And when you have an addiction to something like pornography, you lose the ability to physically react to a real life person, like you were saying earlier. So,
yeah, it desensitizes it.
Yeah, you're desensitized to it. And so he actually had to relearn how to not be stimulated by an image on a screen, but by a person. Well, me. And, you know, so I think that people look at it and think it's, you know, it's no big deal. It's not harmful. It's, and that's just not true. Once we got him help and got it out of our lives, our sex life completely changed and did a 180, you know, and it was better than it had ever been. So
there's two things I want to have you guys share about that you kind of already touched on. When I talk about trafficking, and every time I talk about pornography, I can see the eyes in the room. I can see the hurt that's happening in marriages with people. And I think there's a lot of shame and guilt around this issue. But what I'm hearing you say is that there's hope. And that when you bring something into the light, then there's freedom. And I just wonder if you could speak to that for a minute.
Yeah. Well, for us, you know, when we came together and stuff, we both came from different religious sects. And so when we came together, we really started understanding what God and Jesus meant and having a relationship in our life. And so I think by having that foundation early on and stuff, like without God in it, it wouldn't have mattered. We probably would have been in a divorce, but
yeah,
for her, it helped her.
Yeah, for me, I mean, for us, I know that there's people watching who are, you know, maybe not of Christian faith or Christian background. But I can honestly say that for me personally in the situation, we would have divorced. I was ready to divorce. And he is actually the one who wouldn't give up, which is huge. And for me, literally the only thing that got us through that time period was my faith in Christ. That was it. That was all I had to cling to. Our families were not behind us. He was my enemy. So I looked at the time, I was alone. I had nowhere else to turn except Jesus. And that's the truth. I mean, that's the only thing that really got us through. And, you know, it was an experience for me too, to have to look at myself and how I played a role in all of this. Not that I was to blame in any way, shape or form, but he's pretty quiet. You can see he's actually sitting back, and I tend to move forward.
It's easier to put my arm around you when you're back here like this.
I'm the extrovert. I'm a strong-willed woman and can steamroll him sometimes. And I just remember Jesus speaking to my spirit saying, he can't rise up and be that man that he needs to be for our family if that role is already being fulfilled by me. And so I had to really learn how to tone down myself and let him rise up and look at him less like an enemy and more like support. He needed my support. He was already beating himself up.
Yeah, I mean, I had my own shame and guilt already and stuff, and it had nothing to do with her. It was everything that I was bringing into it, and everything that I had, carried into it from, all the sin that I already had. So it was something I had to deal with. And obviously I needed support. I needed support from other people and stuff that were close by. I didn't need a lot of people. I just needed the right people.
Yeah. It's important to speak it out to the right people. I think that's really crucial.
Yeah.
Well, we know with trafficking that the average person who purchases someone for sex is a white, middle-aged man with a family who lives in the suburbs. And I think that is also true with pornography. And I think that once again, since we've been talking about, getting the stigmas away and shining a light on what's really happening in our communities, it's important to not demonize men, but to talk about the things that they're in bondage to and the shame and guilt that exists there, and to allow that to be a conversation in a safe space too, so that buyers and demand can also receive help. And do you guys feel like that's why you're sitting here on a Zoom call tonight?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
We started talking about this and sharing our story 16 years ago. And 16 years ago, this was not something you talked about. And, even within the church, we were shunned. It was not pretty. And, like I said, we didn't even have the support of our families. It was something shameful that you don't talk about. And we did our own thing and continued to talk about it. And over the years, it's become a little more acceptable to talk about. But the truth of the matter is, back then, the statistic was that 5% of marriages made it through pornography addiction. Yeah. That's just insanity. And so I think a lot of times, first of all, I want to say that, yes, if you look at him, he is like exactly what you described as the person that's addicted to pornography, right? And the people that, had he not gotten out of it when he did, maybe would have progressed into acting out some of these things that he was seeing on screen. Because with any addiction, you need harder stuff, you need more stuff. And
because you get desensitized through the process, and so you're always wanting the next best thing. And
right, which is why pornography is not the same today as it was even 10 years ago. It's becoming more harsh. It's becoming
extreme
violence, incest, things, when we talked yesterday, stuff like things that are not socially acceptable. Are now what pornography is becoming. And that is because the people that are addicted to it are needing worse and worse and harder hits to get those pleasure centers. Yep. And it's not because these are disgusting, fat, I don't know, whatever the stigma is of people who sit behind a computer screen and become addicted to pornography. That is not who is doing this. This is your next door neighbor. This is your dad. Anybody. This is your brother. This is, this is your mom. It's women too.
Yeah. For sure.
And I think we definitely need to be talking more about it. It's not easy for us to sit here and share this. It's still a very uncomfortable thing to talk about. But we very much think that it's important because the people that know us and love us would never suspect that is our history. We have a wonderful marriage today, and we've worked really hard to get there. But I think that it starts by being willing to be uncomfortable and have the conversation and to say, you're not alone. And this is happening everywhere. This is happening all the time with people everywhere. And so we need to start talking about it so that it becomes
naturally, you can talk about it naturally. There's no awkwardness to it.
Yeah.
And also so people know where to go. We've shared in several capacities, and I've had many women reach out to me who actually judged me in the beginning, only to later find out that someone in their life was dealing with this, and they didn't know where to turn, but they turned to me because I had been willing to openly share. And so that's my heart's desire in sharing, is just share your story, get out there, and be willing to be that person that, maybe will take a couple hits from people, but it's worth it for the people who need it. So
thank you guys so much for sharing your story and being vulnerable. I'm really grateful. It's really important to bring it into the light, and it's really important to have personal stories. So valuable. And I love that your kids are right there, because I think this is exactly what we need in this world. We need healthy conversations about what relationships are supposed to be, and bring it into the light. Things when they're in the, it's like when my living room is dusty and the sun comes in the windows, then you got to clean it up, right? But in the darkness, you could just live in the dirt. Yep. So we gotta bring it into the light. So thank you so much, you guys, for coming on tonight and sharing. I really appreciate it. Thanks, friends.
Thank you.
Wow, that was, a very brave story to tell.
Yeah.
One that not many people would be willing to tell. So it's very eye-opening. Thank you to them for joining us. Okay, should we keep moving on?
We'll keep moving. Thanks, you guys, for hanging with us. I know we're going over, but this content is so good. It's our big reveal slide. This is our new shirt. Yay! That we have just for our event tonight. It says, act on what you believe, right? That's what it says. So I love it. And we are grateful for our partnership with Custom and Kind and their local, really amazing business here in the Twin Cities. They put on the Minnesota Christmas market, Minnesota. I'm saying it wrong. I just did that. Was it in my notes? But they're amazing. Go follow them. Go purchase their stuff. It's a great time to support small businesses. So, doing great. Who's going to give $100 or more? We're so grateful for everybody that has been giving. I have a list here. I could just read off some names. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Darla. Thank you, Shauna. Thank you, Meredith. Thank you, Sunday. Just so grateful for everyone who's joining us. So we're going to keep going with.
I bet that Sunday Burquest, I know she's watching. So thank you, Sunday.
She's commenting up the wazoo. I love it. Thanks, Sunday. It's
been way too long since I've seen you, but I'm so glad that you've joined us tonight. We really appreciate your support. Okay, well, that's a real cute shirt, real cute hat. I have to get really close to my computer to see it. It's like I have a spotlight in my eyes right now. Should we keep moving on?
Let's do it.
What do you think? All right, we want to talk to next Sean and Kay from Love to Hope. They are the founders and executive directors of Love to Hope. It's a family nonprofit that works with audiences across America to understand human trafficking and their role in fighting it. This is so important. They're trained ambassadors of hope with Shared Hope International. They're experienced educators. They are national speakers. Their journey to fight trafficking began back in 2012, and it eventually led to a 2-year human trafficking awareness road tour with their kids. They now live in West Central Minnesota, where Sean serves as the executive director of Youth for Christ, and they continue their awareness education with Love to Hope. I am excited to talk to Sean and Kay. Are you with us? I love this part.
I know. Hello.
Hello out there, Sean and Kay. Are you on the Zoom call?
I don't see them.
No, maybe so. Well, we've got other things to talk about.
Oh, there they are. There they are. Yay.
Yay. Hi, guys. Can you hear us? I think your microphone might be off. It's the left. There you go.
Okay.
Yay. Thank you so much for joining us. How are
Absolutely.
you guys?
Happy to be here.
Well, good.
We are.
Good. Okay, so I want to know all about Love to Hope, and I'm sure many of those watching do as well. Tell us what this is.
Your stuff is right over here. Okay. Let's see what's going on with the sound. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Great. I'll let you go. Okay.
All right. Well, Love to Hope is a family run nonprofit that's committed to raising awareness on human trafficking with a special emphasis on domestic minor sex trafficking. And you kind of read in our bio that it started in 2012 when just a simple documentary woke me up. I didn't know trafficking existed. I watched a documentary and it lit a fire. and really just believe that if awareness could open my eyes and move me into action, then the awareness would open other people's eyes and maybe move them into action. And so by 2016, we were really feeling called to full-time awareness. And so we formed our organization, Love to Hope, and we began to strategize what would a road tour around the United States bringing awareness to this look like? How could that work for our family? And how could we make that happen? And by July of 2017, we sold our 5-bedroom home in Minnesota. We sold just about everything in it. We purchased a fifth wheel and we began a 2-year road tour around the United States, stopping in the hot spots where human trafficking is the greatest and educating audiences. God just blew open the doors. We spoke in over 24 states. We spoke to over 12,000 people. We gave hundreds of presentations from senior citizens to students in schools and anywhere in between business professionals and churches and youth groups. And it was so amazing. And so it's just an honor to really bring light to what trafficking is, what are the grooming tactics, and especially what can people do, what can an average person do to make change, and really helping people, hopefully inspiring people to make a difference and plug in. So we also had the opportunity to partner with, to tour, to interview a variety of nonprofits, over 80 the 2 years we were on the road, that were either working directly to fight trafficking or non-directly. And so we learned a great deal from them. We're off-road now. Sean is the executive director of West Central Youth for Christ. And so we're based in Minnesota now, but we are still actively speaking and bringing awareness to Love to Hope, just no longer from a fifth wheel.
Thank goodness.
You spoke about educating people on what we can do, what the average person can do. What is that? What is that message?
Yeah, well, it's so important. At the end of every one of our presentations, it was important to us to make sure we bridged people with active pathways of engagement, because if you just come and bring a lot of bad news, people walk away going, oh my gosh, what kind of world do I live in? And they really do want to bury their heads in the sand. So the important message at the end always was, there are things you can do, and you do not have to look far to find out what those needs are, because in every community there are needs. Human trafficking is the hub on the wheel, but every other social justice issue feeds human trafficking. And we believe that God has put a holy discontent in each of our hearts. And if you just tune into that and you pray about what that is for you, you don't have to look far in your own neighborhood to see where there is a need. So if you're mentoring someone, you're fighting trafficking. If you're volunteering at the soup kitchen, you're fighting trafficking. If you are working in a domestic violence center, you're fighting trafficking. If you're telling people what we're sharing with you tonight, you're fighting trafficking. And so everyone can do something. And the list is long, that is for sure.
I was going to ask you what the greatest needs are to eradicate all of this. Is it just support? Is it listening? Is it sharing? Are there other things we can be doing too?
Oh man, that's an interesting question. I mean, there are so many needs to fight trafficking, and I think the biggest thing is to be aware. It's to understand what trafficking is to break misconceptions, and then it's to find your lane. It's to find, using your unique story and your unique gifts and life experiences to really find your lane. Where can I make impact? Where are my skills? Where do my passions lie? And finding those things. So
yeah, when we first learned about it, it's easy when you hear about this stuff, you get angry. So there's this righteous anger that boils up in you, and some people want to put on a cape. I mean, we didn't go break down doors and rescue girls, but that's not our lane. Kay and I are educators by degree, and we're just public speakers by life experience. So our lane was natural for us to tell people. We've been teaching and speaking our entire career. And so that's what worked for us. And our hope whenever we get to speak is to remind people that they are uniquely gifted by God, not to get too preachy on you here, but we all are blessed. And we want nothing more than for you to tune into that and use that for God's greater good. And He will, if you're willing to take those steps of obedience. But when you're talking about other needs, you know, there are so many. One of the biggest ones, Kelly, is money, finances. So many people try to open up safe houses or start organizations, and in a very short amount of time they go under because there's not enough funding to keep it going. And so when there's events like this and there's opportunities to get involved, and you have people like Stephanie, an organization like Stories that are wanting to collaborate and open up her platform to all these other organizations, those are the people you want to support, and they desperately need it. Now is the best time to do it. So number one, we have to have the finances to continue moving forward. And number two is awareness. You know, we've been speaking, you know, up until the last few months, until this COVID thing hit. We poll all of our audiences, and we ask on a scale of 1 to 5, where are you in your knowledge of human trafficking? 1 being, I know nothing, I've heard the term. 5, I could teach, move over, let me come up there. And to this day, most people, 90%, are 1s and 2s. So that goes to show us, and I want to share with everyone, that there is such a need for more awareness. And so you can be trained to become an awareness ambassador for free through amazing organizations that are very well respected on national levels, and local organizations want you to join their teams, their awareness teams too. And so there's great opportunities there. And then the one that I probably were the most saddened by when we traveled was the lack of collaboration. And you've heard it mentioned a few times, and that is the heart of Stephanie and Stories Foundation. And one of the things we love so much about her, and when I went to this event that she wanted me to go to years ago, when Stephanie was first starting this off, that she talked about that, and that spoke so loudly to us. Because a lot of people even say they want to collaborate, but because they don't know how to do it, they're not willing to take the steps. Well, Stephanie's on the forefront of this, and she has done it better than most that we've seen. And a lot of people want to do good, but she said it tonight, we're better together. And so if we can have more collaboration, and you can support organizations like Stories Foundation that want it, we're going to see big change. And Stories is the one to help do it, for sure.
Yeah, there are other needs too. You know, as we traveled, we saw so many gaps. And, you know, I know one of the questions Stephanie wanted us to address was what is missing, or can we use more of in Minnesota? And Sean's already talked about several of those, but things that Stories Foundation, we think, I mean, obviously we just love Stories Foundation, and tonight is about raising money for Stories Cafe, right? And so what can this organization, and what is this organization doing to fill those gaps? And you know, having quality trained volunteers there's a huge deficit of quality trained volunteers to engage the fight of trafficking. Most of the time when we speak to audiences, they get all jazzed up, they want to do something, and they don't know what to do. And I think, you know, Stephanie's said it many times tonight, you know, we think we have to be, you know, a Wendy, or we think we have to be a Jessica, we think we have to do these things, and we realize we can't, and then we get confused, and so then we quit altogether. And so one of the beautiful things that Stories is allowing is people to find unique lanes to use their gifts within this cafe setting, within cooking, within waiting tables, within loving people. I mean, it's just fantastic, and training them, and really to have volunteers also that are informed on what human trafficking is, so that they're not working under judgment or bias. But they're actually plugged in, understanding the issues, understanding triggers, understanding secondary trauma, understanding trauma bonds, so that they can really love well. I mean, that's what love to hope means. We love people well, and we bring them hope, and hope does not disappoint, and it teaches us to love well. And then finally, I think another big need out there is quality aftercare. I have coined my own phrase I call phase 3 survivors. I just made it up, so don't, but I think what we have sometimes is we have sort of phase 1 where they're in the life, but they want help. Phase 2, they got out of the life and they're in a restorative programming that lasts anywhere from 90 days to 2 years. But after that 2 years, there's this phase 3. There's major gaps in fighting trafficking right there. People that need to know on a continual basis that someone is there for them, that they will find a job, someone will hire them, someone will mentor them, someone will walk with them long term. And I just think that's so awesome that Stories Cafe will provide that. We need more places like that. We need more people like that. I know when Gina was sharing her beautiful story, and she said something, she said, resources are rabbit holes. You know, she's trying to find help, and she just ends up with a number to call a number to call a number. And this kind of stops that rabbit hole. This is an opportunity for a survivor to find a place that will bring employment, that will bring love, that will bring mentoring. So really awesome.
I feel like I should bring Steph onto this conversation. If Steph could join us, because you have worked with Steph for many years, you know her passion, and you know her love for this conversation. And so, Steph, when you hear them talk about that you are leading this, that you are in the forefront of this, how do you feel about that?
Well, that's really kind of them to say. So kind, friends. I think what's unique about Stories and what's unique about me is that my background is not in social work. I was not ever a counselor. That's not how I'm wired. I can be a good friend and a good listener, and I'm compassionate, but I'm a visionary, and I see things big picture, and we've needed the people that are more like emergency rooms or you know, the ambulances or the Band-Aids, where they come and they help the immediate. There's an immediate need here. There are people out there that are in terrible, horrific situations. They need to be taken out of those situations. They need to be put in short-term care. They need all of those services, but we've kind of stopped there. We don't have, like Kay said, we don't have really great aftercare, and we don't have super awesome prevention, like Jessica was talking about, how that's such a need. And so I think that's where an organization like Stories comes in. I think we're trained to look at nonprofits as who's putting the Band-Aids on, who's stitching up the wounds. You know, if the blood is gushing, we're all like, who's taking care of that? And that's super important. We need those people. But then we forget that there's rehab and that there's all this like other stuff that has to happen. And we can't forget about people in the rehab stage. We have to come alongside them. We have to be a community of support and love and grace. And we need jobs and we need housing. And we've heard that over and over and over again. We need resources and we need healthy communities. And that really is going to take all of us. So I don't know if I'm stubborn, I'm persistent, and I believe that we need a third place that creates income, that creates profit to make a difference in our community. We need this social justice issue of human trafficking needs finances, and we can produce finances through business, and we can produce jobs through business, and it's unending. The jobs we can produce when we have a physical space, you don't even want to know about all my ideas. We're going to produce so many jobs, and it's going to help so many people. And we're going to actually move into talking about the cafe now. So thanks so much, my friends, for coming. I'm so grateful for you guys. Love you, you know. But that's what we're dreaming about when we talk about a building. And it's an expensive building, you know, it's a $1 million building. But it's a building that has retail in it. It's a building that has awareness space. So when we can meet again in person, we're not on the internet. It's a building that has social impact business of a restaurant in it. And then it has apartments up top, because we need to start somewhere, and we need housing. We need housing so bad. So we're going to bring Jess and Angela on.
Oh, great.
We're going to wrap this up real soon. We're almost done.
I have a child knocking on my window.
Bless her. Here. I love it.
She'd be in bed. Okay, we want to chat with Jessica and Angela, and they are part of the team that's going to help bring this cafe, this vision to a reality. They're both from Dolezal Creative and Design. Jessica is a third-generation contractor. Angela's an amazing designer. I want to get to them and chat with them. Are they there? Are they on our Zoom call? We'll see. I can't wait to see your video.
Here they come.
Here they are. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Angela.
All right.
Thanks for joining us can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Oh, I can hear you guys. I can see you and hear you.
Good.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are very excited. I want to bring Steph into this conversation as well about the vision that she has and how you're going to help implement this for Stories Foundation. Okay, so Steph, I want to ask you, and I will bring them in as well, but your vision for the cafe is something great. Tell us about it.
It is great, I think. Yeah. 8 years ago when we first learned about human trafficking, we had this idea that we could start a social impact business that could create profit that could go back to fighting human trafficking. And when I talk about it now, I say that a lot of people start businesses for their families, and that's amazing. And I feel like I want to start a business for my anti-trafficking family and for all the women and girls and boys who are being exploited and who are not seen and not heard and not valued, and to say this is a safe place for you. And I want to have finances. We'll always fundraise, but as we kick off this business, it will be not only self-sustaining, but it will be profitable. And we all know that jobs, right? Especially right now, we need jobs. They provide dignified work is super valuable. Housing is valuable. And this awareness is valuable. Having a place, especially in Minnesota, where we can come together, because we will be able to come together again in person. To learn and to collaborate and to join and to say, how do we all together tackle this issue, and how do we really change a culture, which is a really big job, and it's going to take all of us. So
okay, so Jessica and Angela, you're going to help put Steph's vision and make it real life and for our communities to embrace. Tell us why you're choosing to be a part of Storyteller Cafe.
Well, I met Stephanie at a Keeping It Personal event and she was speaking about what she does, and I could just see the passion in her, and she shined. And I thought to her, so she had the food truck, and I thought I have to sponsor her food truck because of what she's doing is incredible. And so we met for coffee, and I'm going to sponsor her food truck. And she starts talking about a space. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. And hearing about all these compelling stories and the encouragement of these world changers who are out there making a change is amazing, because I, like you, lived in a bubble. I knew it was there, but I didn't know it was there to the extent that it's there. And I just read that I think it was a $150 billion business, and I couldn't believe it. And so if this is how I always want to be part of, purposeful and intentional work. And it's my little prayer every day that my work is purposeful and intentional. And this got put in front of me. And if this is how I can be a part of fighting trafficking, then I want to be a part of it. What she does it's amazing. And every time I meet her and talk to her, I'm like, yes. And I'm super grateful that she's choosing us to be a part of this work. So yes, that's why I want to be a part of this. What makes
your involvement in this so different? I mean, are you I guess that's just the question. What makes it different for you this time?
Well, because there's nothing else like it. What she's doing, like they were talking about that third step, they get the help, but being a part of that, empowering people and helping them get back into life and showing them that they do have value, they do have worth. And that's why this is so different, and being a part of it is because there's really nothing else like it. And there's such a need for that in this age. So.
And Angela, you're going to put your design touch on this. How excited are you for that?
We are so excited. We have actually been working on the designs for probably 6 months. And it's as we have the building designed, we have
we're looking at it right now. This is
so
great.
When you look at the building, the where the patio chairs are, that is going to be the cafe. So that will be where you will be able to meet and greet, buy your Stories coffee, order your catering. There'll be a drive-up venue on the other side. And then when you go to the right, there will be retail, which will actually support other nonprofits. Stephanie's really about community and awareness. So the coffee, the t-shirts, and that's a totally movable space. And then also there will be corporate training in the back. So we have training for education, training for people that have been rescued will be able to work there. So the whole nuts and bolts of the Storyteller Cafe is every story has meaning, and you've heard it tonight. So that's why I'm 100% behind the project.
Steph, when you see this and you hear them talk about it, it's beautiful.
It is.
So you're looking at the apartments upstairs. So Stephanie wanted to have apartments for people that are in transition and may need some shelter. So she has a couple apartments for that. And then also her office will be upstairs. So the Storyteller Corporate Stories Foundation corporate office will be upstairs. So we're very excited about the design, the layout, and then also the rooftop will have a cafe once we get to that level.
Well, it really puts it right in your face, and that is why we are here tonight, because we want this cafe to be a reality. We want people to give what they can. I mean, with all the uncertainty we're facing right now, we're all sheltering in place. We know that schools are canceled through the end of the school year now. People are furloughed. But if you can give, Steph,
Yeah.
this is an organization, this is something worth giving to, even if it's $25.
Yeah. I think I believe that we all should do the thing in front of us to do. And I think that living in fear, there's fear that is like, if there's a lion right here, it would be natural that I would be afraid of the lion, right? If you have lost your job because of COVID-19, if you are, struggling to make ends meet, if your life has been extremely adversely affected, please don't feel like you should give tonight. You're vulnerable. That's what we're talking about. Those are vulnerabilities. We want to come alongside people who are struggling. But there are a lot of us who our lives are essentially the same. We just can't leave our houses except to go to Target with our masks on. And, if that's you and you want to support a future that communities are better equipped to come alongside vulnerable people, where we can have healthy conversations together, where we can create safe spaces, where we can offer housing. My nonprofit partners I work with, we have people that need housing and there's no housing, where we can create revenue. Again, so many of the nonprofits that we partner with, financing is huge. It's a huge need. If we could create avenues of unique fundraising where we're not constantly begging for money, but you can come have lunch with us and know that your money just went to a cause. 8 years ago, social impact business wasn't cool. People thought I was crazy. Today, it's cool. You get social impact business. You get, buying products that do good in the world. And that's really what we're doing, is we want to pioneer this coffee shop, retail space, boutique, awareness hub for collaboration, for jobs, for unique avenues of fundraising, and for community, where we can all come together and cover vulnerabilities of each other. Our stories matter. Your story matters. My story matters. Every person's story matters. And I really, really, really believe that when we connect our stories together, that's when we're going to see change in our community. And I think tonight has shown so clearly that we need change in our community. And so I would ask that if you're capable, if you're able to give, to join us. And if you know someone who should be a part of this, because this is fun. This is an exciting adventure, and it's going to be great. I would love for someone to write me a large check. Don't get me wrong. But I also love the idea that this cafe is going to be owned by all of us, that we all can own it. We all can be in the investors in our community, and we can all take pride and ownership in that. And I love it. I love it. So that's what I got.
I love listening to you speak. Don't you, Jessica and Angela?
Yes.
This is why you're involved in this project, because
Why
Steph
we're
is so
involved.
passionate about what she, not only what she can bring to the table, but what we all can bring to the table when it comes to this cafe and just eradicating human trafficking and exploitation. I mean, really, that's what we're all here for. So again, I know Steph, you know, you were asking for giving tonight. Can we give monthly?
For sure. Yes. So you can give monthly, you could give a pledge. Everything is at storiesfoundation.org/storyline. We would love to see businesses come alongside us in sponsorships. We're open to talking about all of that. This is really a for the community, by the community effort. It's going to take all of us to see it happen. And that's how I want it. I want us all to be at a big party. We hope to break ground this August if we can raise that $200,000 by July 1st. And then that would set us on a path of hopefully opening next May. And how fun would it be for us to have a big old party in May when we can be outside in Minnesota and a ribbon cutting for Storyteller Cafe. I want all of you guys there.
Amazing. Okay, I see on our Zoom call a few questions here on the comment section, the chat. They want to know where this cafe is going to be.
Yeah, we're currently looking at land in the Roseville, New Brighton, Arden Hill, Maplewood area. So if you know of any land over in that part of the world, hook us up, because we are looking right there. That's a central location in between Minneapolis and St. Paul. It's a diverse location with a lot of different types of people, and we need an acre. We're looking for an acre for about $100,000. So that's a huge piece of the puzzle right now.
We're going to find it.
We're going to find it.
Someone watching, someone sharing is going to help us find that. Okay, well, I'm pumped. I love the pictures. Can we see those pictures on your website as well?
Yeah, they're there. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Angela, for joining us. And we can't wait to hear more from you and see what you're going to do. We're really excited. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we're just about to wrap up, but I wanted to mention, typically, Steph, you're out and about doing these storyteller events where you would go into churches, into people's homes. Now we're moving obviously all virtually. So if you want to host your own virtual storyteller event through Zoom and learn more about human trafficking and share this message, and then obviously share the message of the Stories Foundation and what they're trying to do with the cafe, please let Steph know. Go to their website, reach out, contact them, and she can set up a Zoom chat just for educational purposes. It's Human Trafficking 101, which I got tonight, really. And it's super eye-opening. And if you think you live in a bubble, you probably do, because things are happening in your community, and it takes people like Steph Page to open your eyes and not scare you, but just make you aware, right?
Yeah, it helps us to have the conversations that we need to have. We just need to have these conversations. All of these things are happening. They're happening with people that we know, people that are close to us, and we just need to start to have the conversation and open that door so we can be compassionate people to the people that are already in our spheres of influence in our community. So that's what a virtual event does, is it allows me to start the conversation for you if that feels awkward and hard with your friends. You invite 10 of your friends and we just have the conversation and talk about it, and break it down. What can we do in our community to combat exploitation and cover vulnerabilities? So yeah, that's what we're doing right now. Well, we're just so
awesome.
thankful.
Well, we had very few technical difficulties. Now did I just jinx us?
You're doing great. I can hear you. I can see you.
Okay, good. Yes, you were saying we are so thankful for everyone.
Yeah, so thankful for everyone coming out tonight, and just want to ask you to share this. We're gonna it'll be up on Facebook, and we're gonna put it on that storiesfoundation.org/storyline event. And we want to keep pushing people to this content and this information. So share it with someone who you think might be interested. And thank you to the Elderberry Queen for sponsoring and to keeping it personal. And remember all those goodies you can get if you go donate at storiesfoundation.org/storyline event.
You did it.
We did it. Thanks, everybody. Do you have anything you want to say, Kelly?
I just say thank you to you, Steph. You are a powerhouse. You are a vision. I'm so glad to call you my friend. I could get emotional just talking about it because we met kind of on a whim. And I'm just so thankful for you and what you're doing. And I'm thankful for all of our panelists, all of our speakers. This has been going on for a couple hours now. So I've been watching some watch parties and the numbers have been really nice. So thank you to those who've watched the entire thing. And if you didn't catch it all, you can catch it on Facebook as well. So it'll be there. And look, here's your level of giving. And you get all these little swag items. I love the coffee and I love the mug for sure.
Fair trade, locally made, all of it. It's all good. It's all good things.
Okay.
So
thank you,
your gifts. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great
Your stories matter. Go
tell them.
Go tell them. Go share them. Live your story, share your story, and let's see them change. Thanks. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.